my very best to get this job that I so crave.
Hey, welcome back to Fanzone Debate. We're here for a number one contenders match. We got Philadelphia, Bill Cariola, going up against Brandon Cohen. Both having very impressive runs to start their careers here at Fanzone in this little rookie bracket we have going on. And then they make their way up to this number one contenders match. Winner of this goes on to play the champion, Mr. Kolkowski. So lots could happen. I'm interested to see. These guys have differing fighting styles, so it's going to be fun to watch what might ensue. Brian, how are you feeling about this matchup?
I don't even know what to expect from these matchups anymore. Because whoever I think is going to win loses points that on paper I think I would go to one person. Their debate sways me the other way. So I've stopped trying to predict anything anymore, except that Bill's going to make us all go crazy.
That's probably true. Cody, welcome. How are you doing, my friend? And are you excited for the match?
I'm excited for the match. I've seen both of these people debate. I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. I think, honestly, at the end of the day, I think both people make an interesting challenge to Kirk. As someone that played him, it's not fun. You'll think about it long nights afterwards, but I think they may have like the differing style to maybe throw Kirk off. So, but they got to get there. So this is an interesting match. It's not a championship. It's not extended, so they have to win in this format. So we'll see how it goes. I think this could go to the final question, though.
Yeah. So let's bring in the players. We'll start with Mr. Brandon Cohen. Brandon, welcome. Your little run here, you played Will Cohen in your debut match. And then you went on to play Tyler Birch in match number 2. And now you're here. How have you felt about the matches so far? And are you excited to play Bill?
I still don't know what I'm doing. I still don't remember signing up for this. But I keep getting matches. And so I'm going to keep trying to do my best and make people mad.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right, let's bring in Mr. Bill Cariola. Bill, I am dying. That's why I need the water. Bill, welcome to the match. You're here in a number one contender spot. In your debut, you went up against Chadwick Webb.
Don't remind me. That still pains me to have to talk about.
And then
a whole bunch of movies in there. So.
In your second match, though, I think the lead here is you KO'd Brooklyn Vale in match number 2 to get your spot here today. A KO on the record, and against somebody who's, helped kind of create this league, has done a lot of debating in his time. So pretty impressive stat to have. How are you feeling going up against Brandon?
I mean, I shot the wad on that one. I don't know. I still send chocolates to Brooklyn. I felt real bad about that. But I don't know. We'll see. I like yelling at people, so this should be fun. So
that's fair. All right, we're going to get into it. Here's how it's going to work. The players drafted some categories. Then we gave them some questions based off those categories. They're going to debate them tonight before our very souls. What's going to happen is they're each going to get a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute free form, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of those at the end of that debate, Brian, Cody, and I will write on our handy-dandy boards and/or paper who we thought won that question. Best 2 out of 3 wins the point, and first person to 3 points wins the match. So if we are tied coming out of the 4 prep questions, there will be a bonus question to decide the match. So players, any questions as we get into this?
Nope.
Cool. Let's do it. All right, we are going to kick this off with question 1, which was drafted by Bill in the category of Star Trek. And the question is as follows. What is the best performance from a Star Trek villain? So, Bill, because you drafted this, You get to go first. You're gonna have 10 seconds to 10 seconds. Jesus, you're gonna have longer than that, Bill. You're gonna have 1 minute to open.
I mean,
your
I'll take
argument.
10 seconds. I can slam dunk it in that time.
I will come in when you have 10 seconds left to give
Fair
you
enough.
a warning. So 1 minute, Bill, when you start talking.
There's been a lot of great Star Trek villains. I mean, we could go on, but if we're going to talk about performance-based, I can think of none better than Christopher Plummer in Undiscovered Country. I don't know if you've seen that guy's resume. His trophy cabinet's got more hardware than a Home Depot. The man's fabulous, and he is just... every moment he is in that movie, he is just working circles around everybody else in that cast. Even David Warner's having some trouble keeping up. He is just so cool. He is so iconic. He is completely unlike any Klingon that has ever existed, whereas all of them usually have those bad wigs. He was like, no. They completely tear out a very unique looking character, and it really allows that performance to shine through. It is just so good. He is so lovely. He is cunning. He is suave. He just dominates the screen every time he shows up. Christopher Plummer.
Time. Okay. Brandon, you now have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So there have been countless iconic sci-fi movie villains: Darth Vader, Mr. Smith, and Khan. These three are some of the, they're on the Mount Rushmore of movie villains. And the reason they're up there is for different reasons. For Darth Vader, it's the iconic mask. It's the set pieces for Mr. Smith. But for Khan, it is the performance by Ricardo Montalban that makes it stand out more than others. There's, like I said, countless movie villains in sci-fi movies. And to be honest, a lot of them just kind of blend together. But the way Ricardo Montalban brings to it is this man fueled by vengeance. He's sympathetic. You kind of agree with him at times. He's so hateful. He's not just trying to take over the world. It's personal, and he brings that with him. He brings something to this character, this wounded pride, and you see a character that's relatable, and that's all through his performance, and that's what fuels this movie.
Time. Okay. All right, so Plummer versus Montalban. You guys have 5 minutes of free form. When one of you starts talking, please remember not to talk over each other. And when we do get to the 1 minute warning, I will throw that up on screen for you guys. Have fun.
I mean, if you're relating to a genetically engineered like crazy person, we're gonna have a talk about that.
Well, we've all been cast out. We've all been left behind. We've all been felt wronged by someone. He was left on a planet for 3 years by Kirk, stewing in his hatred. We've all, not necessarily being genetically modified, but we've all been there. We've all, thought about getting revenge on someone. We've all thought about and just like sit in that anger, and that anger eats you alive. And he really brings that to the character. You really feel this guy who felt like he's been wronged and wants his revenge.
The thing is, though, the thing your movie is remembered for is the big swerve of Spock dying. And it's the movie as a whole, not necessarily Montalban's performance. Because while he's doing an admirable job, he leans too much into the ham at times, and he is just not of the same caliber that one Christopher Plummer is. Because he is commanding every scene that he's in, whereas usually it's circumstances in your movie that are driving that movie. It's not necessarily what he's doing. There's times where he's just overdoing it and he doesn't know when to reel it in. And you can't even blame it on the director, because Nicholas Meyer directed both of those movies. And he got a much better performance out of Christopher Plummer, because Christopher Plummer is fucking a G when it comes to acting. And you could see it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not, it is the movie, but the movie is known. It's the Wrath of Khan. Like, yes, Kirk or Spock dying is one of the more memorable moments of that, but it's all brought around by this mastermind. Yeah, he hams it up at times, but at some certain times he also is absolutely terrifying because it's genetic modified. He's smarter, so he's able to kind of reel it in at times and be scary, and then he's able to kind of explode. He has that, kind of that range of working at both.
Yes, but Plummer does it better. I mean, as soon as we meet him, he is unlike any other character we've really seen. He is very calm. He's very cool. He's very smart. He's very calculating. And he's actually very suave. And just everything about him is purposeful and just commanding. Like, you just want to see more of him. And the film suffers when he's not in it because he is the most compelling thing about his movie. Whereas the most compelling thing about your movie is more Kirk's struggle with him going over the whole unwinnable scenario and him having to give up his best friend and the big funeral at the end. It's more of the story, not so much the performance. Whereas in my movie, universally, Christopher Plummer is the reason to go back and watch that movie based on just about every single review in existence, because especially in the courtroom scene, that's how you ham it up and do it right. Like, that whole scene wouldn't have felt out of place if you would have put it in like any other courtroom drama. And that's because Christopher Plummer is acting his ass off in this film. And it just shows all over that celluloid.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, for me, I just go off of iconic moments, like when it comes to, because I've seen a lot of sci-fi movies, and Chris Plummer was great, but it's just a lot of it blends together. So yes, there was these moments that the movie has, but it all comes back. Like I said this before, it all comes back to Khan. Like, being able to drive Kirk to madness and yell Khan. Like, it's all this guy driving him to madness. For me, Christopher Plummer is great, but it suffers that it kind of just, it's not the performance's fault, but it kind of just devolves into another Star Trek villain. Like, I had it when you said Mr. Christopher Plummer, I had to remember, like, okay, which Star Trek is that from? When you think Star Trek 2, you don't have to say The Wrath of Khan. You think of The Wrath of Carter Montalban. You just remember, though, they just go hand in hand. He doesn't kind of.
You remember the death of Kirk, or you remember the death of Spock. You remember the whole unwinnable scenario. You remember those character moments, not so much Montalban, because while he's doing a good job, he doesn't know when to reel it in and play it subtle. Whereas everything about Christopher Plummer is just beauty and subtlety and just chef's kiss evil. Like, the whole, he doesn't even say like fire weapons, little finger wag, while he's just carting off all of his Shakespeare quotes. It is a smorgasbord of just how to do a fantastic villain. And he is knocking it out of the park every time he steps up to the plate. I'm sorry. Like, while your movie is great, and it is probably the best, but it's not best movie, it's best performance, and it goes to Christopher Plummer.
Time. All right, Brandon, we're going to close with you first. You get 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
So he keeps saying not best movie, but in a sci-fi movie, everything relies on the villain. So yeah, I have the better movie, but that is because of the better villain. You cannot have a movie that stands the test of time without having someone driving force like Ricardo Montalban does. He is calculated. He is smarter than them, so he knows exactly the right moves to make. He is terrifying. He is sympathetic at times. We've all felt cast out before. We've all felt thrown aside, and Ricardo Montalban really brings that hatred. You can feel it. You can relate to him. Yeah, I'm not a cybernetic. I am, but not everyone else is. So you really feel that hate. You really kind of connect with the character, and it's not just a guy trying to take over the world. It's a guy who really makes it personal.
Time. Okay. We'll go over to Bill for his closing. 1 minute when you start talking.
Now, I know you keep harping on how great your movie is, and while your movie is great, the question is not what's the best movie, it's what's the best performance. And while Montalban's doing a fine job, Nicholas Meyer obviously clearly got a much better performance out of Christopher Plummer. Everything about that character, right down to the look, is calculating, it's unique, and he is iconically memorable. Every scene he is in, like the second he meets Kirk, he sizes him up, he figures him out, and he knows exactly what he's going to do, and Kirk falls right into his master plan. Every time that guy's on scene, it is just like a masterclass on how to be evil, but without having to overdo it, without having to do this whole stabbing at the dog, I stab at thee, and just melodrama hamming it up, where Plummer's only giving you a little slice of ham. He knows when to do, but he also knows when to dial it back. He also knows when to be subtle, and that's why this is just one of the best villain performances in any Star Trek movie. Ask any Star Trek fan, they're going to tell you Christopher Plummer is just a fucking amazing villain.
Time. Okay. All right. I'll bring in the judges.
I haven't been here in a while. Can you repeat the question for me?
And the question was, what is the best performance from a Star Trek villain? I will say this did not go into my judging, but I'm halfway through Undiscovered Country right now, which is
So
kind
good.
of, I kind of forgot this was happening tonight.
Oh, wait,
Well, I
great
knew it was
later
happening. I
tonight.
forgot this was the question.
They're all meh. If we're being real.
Cody. Are you good, judges?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna go first. I went with Bill. I thought that Bill did a really good job of kind of drawing that line of like where Montalban is good, but he kind of can't, like, he hams it up a little bit too much. But Plummer's got this like being super evil without needing to like overdo on the performance side of things. And I think he kind of had this kind of from the get-go. There was no point really where Brandon was able to make an argument to me about why the performance of Montalban was better than the performance of Plummer in the argument. But Cody, you look like you're going to tell me I'm wrong. Maybe, I don't know.
No, he tasks me. I think Bill did. I don't agree with Bill, but I voted for Bill. And the reason why I don't agree with it, he threw like a lot of deflections at Brandon, and Brandon had to like fight around to get to his question, like the answer to his question, because he kept throwing movie and kept going to Spock's death, getting him completely off of what the performance really was. And I think it's a smart move, because if you're going to compare the two performances, he probably had the upper hand of picking Khan. But to be able to make him battle through stuff that wasn't a part of the question and use all his time debating stuff that didn't matter, Bill was able to show Plummer as the better answer at that point. So, yeah.
Brian, where would you have voted?
First of all, I think these were the two correct choices. These are probably the ones I should have chosen. I think that Brandon did a great job of supporting an argument on why Khan as a character is the better villain. However, when it came down to performance, I really think that Bill hit a lot better home as far as what Christopher Plummer did in his performance, in his portrayal of the character, in the subtlety and the nuance that he used. Whereas I didn't hear as much of that from Brandon.
Okay. All right. So Bill
This hurt my
wins.
person. I love both these movies. This hurt me.
Bill wins the first
Meh.
point. And we are going to move on to the next question, which was drafted by Brandon. It is in the category of Oscars. And the question is, what non-fandom film that won visual effects in the 21st century has the visual effects that hold up the least? That was a wordy one, but I think you guys figured it out. So, Brandon, you get to kick this one off. You got 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
All right, so this is a weird question, which is what I wanted when I picked this category. And it kind of took a little like of me looking back and looking at the interpretation of it, because, I mean, in this century, like the year 2000 is not that long ago. So all these movies look honestly pretty good, and there's not very many that aren't fandom. So it only left us a couple. So the way I looked at it was more as like, which hold up as in the least impressive special effects. And when I came on with was Gladiator. Now, I know that sounds controversial because Gladiator is amazing. And I'm not saying it's not amazing. I'm just saying if Gladiator came out today, I don't even think it's going to be nominated for visual effects, because what it uses visual effects for is not explosions, not giant talking polar bears. The main visual effect is just Rome. It uses this visual effects just to build the city. And we've seen that countless times since then. So it's just not as impressive nowadays.
Okay. We're going to move on to Bill. Bill, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So while prepping for this argument, I decided to knock the dust off my PS2 and watch the loading screen movie that is the fucking Golden Compass. This was laughable when it came out. This movie looks like Jack from The Incredibles looks less digital than this horseshit film. Nothing at any point in time of what I am watching do I believe is actually happening in front of me. I'm not even sure Sam Elliott and fucking Daniel Craig were actually there. And they're actual human beings. It is just painful to watch this thing. Also, they've now since done it better on Netflix with 1/3 the budget. So go figure that out. So the fact that this came out in 2007 and it looks like it came out in 1996 speaks volumes for how poorly this thing is aged. This is aged like milk in a saucer on a roof in Arizona in August. That's how bad this is. This movie blows.
Die. Jesus. All right, guys. 5-minute free form and one of you starts talking.
So I gotta start with a question. Do you like movies?
I love movies.
You fucking Gladiator? You gonna tell me Gladiator doesn't have effects that hold up?
I mean, you have to admit there was like 4 movies that they cut us to, so it was slim pickings. But the way I'm looking at it is just compared to everything else. If I gave you a list of awards and you said, okay, obviously it was nominated for Best Picture, obviously Best Actor, obviously maybe cinematography, but special effects isn't what you think of. The special effects are building the cities, they're building the audiences, things like that are easily done today. It's done in every single movie. So like it's just this is not as impressive when it's just like building a city, maybe a fake tiger here and there. They don't. There's much more to go off. I mean, I don't think the polar bear, in some of the effects that they do look that they're obviously not as good as the HBO one. Don't get me wrong, but they don't look that bad. It's just
They don't look that
it's
bad.
definitely more obvious of why they got nominated than Gladiator. Gladiator just doesn't do enough to be like this is a effects movie,
Dude. The Golden Compass is literally shitting in my mouth and saying it's a Sunday. If those polar bears looked any worse, they would be opening up fucking Cokes. That's what they look like. I'm pretty sure it's the same company. And the thing about your movie is these special effects are subtle. Here's the thing. Practical effects always beat CGI 9 times out of 10. And they are doing wonderful composite shots. So what they are taking is actual tigers, actual people, filming them separately, putting them together almost seamlessly so you can't even notice. Anytime you see anything far away, the CGI is minimal at best. The Golden Compass over relies on it because you can't have full polar bears fighting, and so they got to just pop up this goddamn Saturday morning cartoon in front of me. It's terrible, and I can't believe I'm about to say this sentence. I cannot for the life of me figure out how the Golden Compass lost to the Order of the Phoenix. I can't believe the Order of Phoenix didn't win over this, because when I watched that, I'm like, oh my God, this house split apart. I believe every minute of that more than I believe these 2 Coke bears are just like arguing over Santa and fucking this Coca-Cola like commercial. It's just like mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Tell me what about that looks like. Anything in the Golden Compass, right? Fucking fantastic. There you go.
No, not fantastic.
Nothing is good in there.
They're not fantastic, but I think it's not as, like I'm saying, the way I was looking at this question was that was holding up, and it's just you say subtlety, it's just not impressive. Like Gladiator is just watching movies nowadays, like they do the composite shots, they do make it look, even like Clash of the Titans, which was the same effects guy, that makes more sense for me. Not as good of a movie. That makes more sense to me that got nominated than Gladiator does, because there's just much more to go in. This is the Oscars for visual effects.
Yep.
They don't usually do subtlety. All these movies that win, it's never just like, oh, they added a wrinkle to a guy's face. No, it's always they added, CGI. They added big purple talking Thanos. They added all these things, and that's what the Oscars has always been. It's always celebrated that. So then when you go back and you get subtlety like this, it just doesn't hold up with all those. Because I compared this to all the future winners, and Gladiator's just like really like it's probably one of the best movies out of all
stunning
of them.
and violent as hell, and it's Ridley Scott is directing the hell out of this goddamn thing. Not to mention when this award was created, the first movie that won it was American Werewolf of London. 0 CGI. That shit looks phenomenal. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to drive this point home. Practical effects will always beat CGI. When you are in the Coliseum and you are watching these fights, you are immersed in it. Like, I get lost in it. When a movie has bad CGI and it's just a bad movie, which the Golden Compass is, I can't get behind anything. Like, I love the first Spider-Man movie, but the effects in that movie, some of it wasn't good for the time, but the movie as a whole is fantastic, and you can forgive little things. There's nothing forgivable in the Golden Compass, from like just the outlandish backgrounds to the cartoonish like animals. It is just not pleasant to look at. Gladiator, I could watch a million times and be like, yeah, that is violent and is bloody. I believe that shit is happening in front of me. It is just a masterclass on how you marry these two different styles together. They don't over-rely on CGI, but they are hammering it home with the practical effects. It is stunning to look at. I believe that movie came out today. It holds up.
Time. Okay, we're going to go to Bill to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
If I can believe more in Ratchet and Clink as being actual things, your movie didn't do a good job. And the thing about Gladiator is, like, he said, like, if that came out, if the fucking Golden Compass came out today, everyone would laugh that shit out of the theater. People were doing it when the movie came out. I'm sorry. It has not held up well. It wasn't good then. It's far worse now. And when you see what an actual effects house that knows what they're doing can do with the same material, it's amazing. What Ridley Scott and his crew did in Gladiator is fantastic. Any nitpicks are few and far between. By and large, that film looks like it could have just been made today, and I'd be mind blown. It is just glorious, and I will say it a million times, and I'm going to drive this point home. Practical effects will always beat CGI. And Gladiator is marinating in it. And goddamn, if the Golden Compass isn't a goddamn cartoon eyesore. It's terrible.
Time. Okay. I'll bring in Brandon for his 1 minute closing when you start talking.
So again, I looked at this a different way. I looked at this as which of these held up compared to all the winners. When you think of this category, you think of the melding of CGI with practical effects. You think of all these all the movies we weren't allowed to pick, to be honest. You think of all of the Fandom movies. You think of the Marvel movies. You think of all these things. And Gladiator is by far probably the best movie out of all the ones we weren't even allowed to pick. But not for the visual effects, right? They used it as a method of building the city. That's something we get all the time now. Most movies are built on green screens. So we get that in spades these days. It's just, I don't think this movie would even be nominated if it came out today. It would be nominated for costumes, for makeup, all things like that. But visual effects would not be one of them. And I can see my time.
Okay. All right. So I will bring in the judges. No, I had that right the first time. Why do I myself? Okay. All right. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you're kicking us off.
All right. Well, first, a quick fact check. Of the 22 eligible movies, only 4 could not have been chosen. 3 Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man 2. The other 16 are all eligible, I think. I don't know about live action Disney. Is that still Fandom? I don't know.
Technically, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then there's 6 that couldn't have been chosen out of 22. But anyway, I think that this one was won pretty much from the beginning by Bill. Mostly not because of Bill's argument, but I feel like Brandon was arguing a whole different question as far as which movie had which of the winners had the less impressive special effects, whereas Bill talked about how his is the actual question is which ones don't still hold up, the actual visual effects that are in the movie. So my vote went to Bill.
Okay, I disagree. I think that Brandon, I understood what Brandon was saying about like, I thought the point that he made about like saying like if this came out today, it wouldn't even be nominated. Like that's how bad the visual or effects are. They don't hold up. So I disagree on that point. However, I do agree with you. I did go with Bill. I just thought Bill on the whole was stronger on this one. I thought that Brandon, the way that he came at it, coming at it from like a less aggressive way, I thought was actually kind of smart. But Bill, the way that he was able to say like when he was saying like they've even done like a remake of Golden Compass now, and the visual effects are better in that with less money, and just that people were like laughing it off when it came out, and he gave examples of other things that year that should have won more. So Bill just had a lot more into it, and honestly the point that kind of drove it home for me was, which he said it like a million times, but he brought up that it is not just all about CGI effects, and that the visual effects in Gladiator that are practical hold up still to this day, versus just the bad CGI in Golden Compass. So I thought Brandon did a good job. I just thought Bill had a stronger argument. Cody, where are you voting?
Okay, so I have a few points, so sorry if I'm a little lengthy. But I kind of agree with Brandon. I think there was only a technically 4 that somebody could possibly pick from, because the rest are so new that it's really hard to argue based on the newer technology that they didn't age well over this short course of time. When you look at it that way, I think Benjamin Button passed. It's pretty hard to choose anything like besides Golden Compass. Second, I don't say this very often, but I think this is arguably one of the best debated rounds that I've seen in a long time. Bill, from start to finish, just collapsed it. The only issue I have to take is with Braden. I think it's an interesting strategy because you picked Gladiator versus Golden Compass, so you had to take it a different path. The only problem I always have with that is the judges may not have to take the way you're debating it as the effect of winning. Like, just because you challenge it in a different way doesn't mean it always hits for us. And I think just the roadmap that Bill was able to create of why it was created, practical effects, visual effects, and then just kept hammering home. It was just super hard to overcome that. And again, Golden Compass is arguably garbage. So I did go with Bill at the very end. But no, I think it was just really. I will say, I think this is the first and last time that visual effects will probably ever be drafted in Fanzone. It is a hard fucking question to debate.
Yeah,
It's like arguing comedy.
Yeah, that was rough.
All right, so Bill is up 2-0. So Brandon does need to hit this next one in order to stay in the game. The question was drafted by Bill in the category of actors. The question is, which 1990s Christian Slater character would be the most fun to go out with? So Bill, you get to kick this one off. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
When I look at what Slater did in the 90s, the one I'm going to go to, and it's probably because it's near and dear to my heart, but I'm going with Mark Hunter in Pump Up the Volume because I'm a music nerd. I enjoy myself some music. And there's nothing cooler than a guy that runs a pirate radio station and has phenomenal taste in music. And that is somebody that I could hang out with and we could have some fun. We could just go out, talk about music, maybe go to some shows, hit some record stores, good chill vibes. That's what I'm looking for when I want to go hang out. And so Mark Hunter is definitely the guy, not to mention also hilarious. Sure, he's a little bit of an introvert, but once you get him out in the open, the guy is charming. He is smart. He is funny. And Matt, who doesn't want to listen to Ice-T and the Descendants all the time? A+ human being, Mark Hunter, happy Harry Hard on. Let's fucking go.
Time. All right. We're going to go over to Brandon for your opening. 1 minute when you start talking.
So Christian Slater's just a cool dude. You know, I would like to go out with him personally, but that wasn't the question. So I chose Clarence from True Romance. Now, sure, he's a weirdo. He talks a lot, but we're all hanging out on the internet debating movies. So we're weirdos. We talk a lot too. So he would fit right in. We would be able to debate all these things, like which characters would win in a fight, or tell us which characters would be most likely to fuck Elvis. He would just be a blast to hang out with. He's the type of guy you could throw back a couple beers with, you could watch a game with, steal a bunch of coke and hang out with hookers with. He's versatile. He's just the type of guy that I would like to hit the town with, shoot the shit with in any situation. Me and Clarence would hit it off. I'm good with my time.
All right. Fun fact. Never seen either of these. I know.
You would probably love True Romance.
I know.
Honestly,
I own it. I own it on
Tony Scott, Zenith.
I own it on Blu-ray. Haven't watched it yet. But 5-minute freeform when you start talking.
Here's a funny story. Let me tell you this. I got held up at gunpoint once, and somebody robbed me. Do you know what that wasn't? Fun. That is not fun. That is so not fun. And Clarence is a fucking problem magnet through his entire film. I don't want to be anywhere near that guy. That is just a recipe for getting fucking murdered, which is what 80% of the people around him had happen. I don't think that's fun.
But we're not in a movie. So you can control that.
Yeah.
You can control where you go. My question for you is this. Where are you going with Mark Hunter? He's a teenager.
Okay, where am I going with Mark Hunter? We're going to go to the truck. We're going to watch fucking Sebado and fucking Dinosaur Jr. kill it. You're going to go fight a fucking pimp, steal some coke, and piss off the mob. Do you really think that sounds like fun?
Hey, as a teacher who deals with angsty teenagers all day, the last person I want to hang out with on my day off is an angsty teenager. So I would rather fight a pimp or go out and have all these adventures. Have someone to actually connect to. All jokes aside, I'm not actually gonna go out and steal hookers and do coke, whatever. I want a guy that I could actually like hang out with, and connect to. I connect to teenagers on a different level. I see that for work. I want nothing to do with teenagers as my personal life. So for me, Clarence is just the type of guy that I would hang out with. I'm a weirdo. I like to talk weird shit. I don't like to fight hookers and pimps and things like that. But the type of guy that I would hang out with would be Clarence.
So, funny story. Got into a fight one time and got hit in the head with a bat. Not fun. That is not fun. And the people I knew that got me into those situations, guess what I stopped doing? Hanging out with them. I used to know a meth head who thought he talked to Joan Baez. Does that sound like somebody you want to hang around with? Why do I want to hang around with the chuckle fuck that's talking to Elvis? I want to be around this person. He is a calamity walking. Everything he touches, got his dad killed, got his friend killed, got the cops killed, got the mob killed. Couldn't even keep track of his own eye. His own wife only barely survived James Gandolfini. I want no part of this human being. Now, Mark, we're going to be chill. Go check out we'll run his pirate radio show. You know what we're going to do? We're going to fuck with the school board because they're shitheads. Because they are robbing kids. Yeah, because they're robbing kids. And you know what? He is a stand-up guy who's doing the right thing. Clarence is fucking around with other people's drugs and money and getting people shot. Mark is trying to shake up the system by pointing out, hey, you know what? What you're doing is totally not right. Guess what? Wasn't. The fucking school board went to jail because they were fucking around. Because they're terrible. And Mark saw that. That is good human being behavior. This is a stand-up guy. I want a guy that's going to help me out through situations like that. I don't want a guy that's going to like pull a gun on me because he thinks I might be working with the cops because he's dangerously unstable. That is not someone I want to be around, man. I'm sorry. Like, I'll take, I know you have your problems, but I also have my problems, and I'd rather hang out with a level-headed teenager that maybe just wants to put on some Lou Reed. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know. I just keep going back to like hanging out with. Have you ever actually hung out with an angsty teenager? I don't know if you have kids. That's not your own. Like it's just not. It gets old real quick. You get it. You're like, okay, you're mad at the world. You want to stick it to the man. But after a while, you're like, dude, you need to chill out. You need to just relax. You need to just have a good time. And angsty teenagers don't know how to do that. They don't know how to turn it off. And it would just get old. It would get sick. You'd be sick and tired of it within 20 minutes of just listening to him go on and on and on. Meanwhile, Mark, we can just throw back.
Yeah,
a
but
couple
then
beers
you know
with him.
what?
You don't have to go.
Yeah, we'll throw on some Stone Roses. Like, I know you keep saying, like, do you want to hang out with an angsty teenager? Do you want to hang out with some guy whose teeth are fucking bleeding and his eyes are sweating and he's waving a gun around because
More
he thinks
interesting
you
than the
might
life
have said
I'm
something
living right
wrong?
now.
Like, I don't know about you, but you know what? I could fucking handle a teenager. I can't handle the fucking mob coming in with guns ready to murder the ever-loving fuck out of me. So I'm sorry. Like, I know you have your problems with teenagers. Mark is clearly the better choice to hang out with. You know, you just sit in your basement, you hang out, you relax. Maybe you just throw on some Urban Dance Squad, and that's fine. I don't feel like getting into a knife fight without a knife and maybe ending up dead in a tub. I'm just saying.
Time. Sorry, just the way you said tub made me laugh. We're gonna go to Brandon first on this one. Brandon, you get to close. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
Look, I'm looking for some excitement in my life. Okay, I need to shake things up. And me hanging out with an angsty teenager who hides in his basement all day is not my idea of shaking things up and having a good time. I want a guy that I can shoot the shit with. I want a guy that I can throw back a couple beers with. We don't need to do all the crazy stuff. Yeah, this isn't a movie. This is real life. Okay, shit like that doesn't happen. So I'm looking at the guy. I want the guy who we could just debate movies with, right? Talk about movies, talk about films, talk about music, talk about Elvis, talk about all these things that would be great conversation pieces at a bar. All the other stuff, that's movie stuff. You know, this is real life. So I'm looking at the type of guy, the type of personality he has. And that's the type of guy that I think I would get along with. Not an angsty teenager who hides in his basement. I get tons of that every day of my life. That's the last thing I need. I want a dude's dude. And that's Clarence.
Time. Okay. Bring in Bill, who has 1 minute when he starts talking.
Sure thing. So here's the thing. I know you're like, you want a little excitement. I hung out with a bunch of old friends of mine once, didn't know the car was stolen. That was not fun. These things are not fun. I know you want excitement. It's the wrong kind of excitement. And when you get to be my age, you're like, I don't feel like getting into fights with like guys who just like think they're alpha males and are going to try to fuck over a whole bunch of people and are just fucking crazy and talking to imaginary friends. That is just nowhere near where I want to be at this point in my life. Meanwhile, I'd rather hang out with a guy. It's like, hey, you know what? I got this crazy record collection. I'm starting my own pirate radio. And here's all the things that are bugging me because I actually have a voice and an opinion. And I actually see some things that are wrong. And I'm trying to do the right thing. And I'm trying to reach these people. I'm trying to maybe like reach out to like other people and connect with them on a personal level, which is what Mark does throughout the entirety of that film. That's the kind of guy I want to be around. A stand-up guy who, you know, maybe cares about his fellow man and wants to listen to the Descendants because they rule.
Time. All right. I'll bring in the judges.
You sure Brian didn't pick this question?
Where do you think I got all the studies from? It's from studying for that match.
Cody, you're
So it's an interesting question because, like, if it was hanging out in the realm of the movie, Brandon picked the worst choice possible of all Christian Slater, I'm pretty sure, like by far. But if you break it down to just the character and how you would be hanging out with the character, which is how I took the question. I took the question. Yes, I took the movie, of course, that's what, but I had to take him as a person into the account. I think it was a lot closer when I broke it down that way. I went with Brandon actually, because I think when you broke him down as like a person of like hanging out, just chilling, going around, not being a teenager, that is something that I think Brandon would told me of why he would want to hang out with him and why a teenager would be absolute awesome. And best thing is watching Brian laugh every time he heard anything about a teenager because he's like, yeah, I'm with you, kid. But no, I think with Brandon, I think it was a better person.
Brian.
Bill, who's your vote go to?
Yeah.
Okay. But way back in my trivia days, I picked 90s Christian Slater a lot. So I was very, very curious to watch it. It's your one. I will say that this time you both missed the correct choice, which is George Cuffs from Cuffs, but nobody's seen that movie but me. So whatever.
I saw that movie.
Okay, so you'll appreciate
San Francisco movie.
So Yeah, I think that well, I'll tell you right from my vote went to Brandon as well. I think that he did a great job of explaining, why Clarence would be a lot of fun to hang out with. He's going to talk about movies and comics and music and all this kind of thing. You're going to have fun with him. You're going to have excitement with him. He'd just be a great guy to hang out with. Whereas Bill, I mean, even in his own opening, he mentioned that that his person is an introvert. Mark's an introvert. Now he does open up later in the movie, but he did mention that. But I also think that Brandon kind of hit it right on the nose, which I know Cody mentioned as well in Brandon's closing. He talked about Bill's bringing up all this movie stuff, all the stuff that's specific to these movie situations. But if we're just talking about the character, not in that situation, I think by far he did a better job pitching Clarence.
My vote doesn't count. I also went with Brandon for pretty much the same reasons you guys did. I thought that he framed that in a really interesting way that I didn't even think about, but absolutely makes sense. And I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. Also, I was waiting for Brandon to be like, dude, why do you want to hang out with a minor? But he never did. So there you go. But all right. So it is 2-1 in favor of Bill. So once again, Brandon does need to hit this next one in order to send it to the bonus round. So the question was drafted by Brandon in the category of the MCU. And the question is, what is the worst scene featuring 2 or more Guardians of the Galaxy in the MCU? So Brandon, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I hated this question because I spent so long on this question because I love the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're my favorite group within the MCU. Every time they're on screen, I love it. Every time they're in a movie, I love it. So looking for the worst moment was very tough to me, but there actually was one that kind of stood out. Now, I love the Guardians because they're these deep characters. They're all deeply flawed, but you can laugh with them, you can cry with them, and they do fun moments of dancing all the time, right? But they also do the heavier moments like Yondu's death, which in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 made me cry all 3 times I saw it in theaters. And when I see it now, when Cat Stevens is playing, you get that beautiful moment that they're able to capture. Now, one moment they weren't able to capture is the "We Are Groot" moment in Guardians 1. I think it's just overly cheesy. It doesn't work. And it's just a moment that always makes me groan.
Time. Okay. Move over to Bill. Bill, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
So, believe it or not, my favorite MCU movie is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I adore that series. It's just fantastic. James Gunn is killing it. And when I had to look at what the worst scene was, it's when you take these beloved characters and you give them to a different director that clearly does not know how they work. And then you get the groan fest that is the opening to Thor Love and Thunder. You take these wonderfully well-rounded characters. They are now one note, and they are all playing second fiddle to Thor. And it is an unfunny, painful experience. Nothing about it works. None of the jokes land. Everything is just terrible. This is Taika Waititi given into his worst impulses. No one decided to rein him in this time around. And this movie suffers. It is borderline character assassination. I will not stand for it. It is a pox on humanity, this whole scene.
Time. All right. So We Are Groot versus the opening of Love and Thunder. Gentlemen, you have 5 minutes of freeform when one of you starts talking. And I have seen both of these movies, actually. So.
Cool.
So the opening fight scene is I'm thinking just the Sweet Child of Mine fight scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the best part of this movie. This movie stinks. So the only redeeming moment is I love seeing when they pull in a rock song and you get this crazy fight scene. So for me, that's the only redeeming quality of this movie is when Taika tries to go a little bit of Guardians. We're not talking about the back and forth for that. We're talking about the fight scene that they're having. So that's really the only cool moment in this entire movie. for my scene, it's just we're looking like we're getting to this big finale. It's really the only thing that doesn't hit for me. We're getting this big finale, and all of a sudden the scene just comes to a halt, literally. The slow motion hits. It's overly sappy. The lights are going. The only emotion you get is a little bit on Rocket's face. And then this entire movie, we spent 2 hours teaching us that he knows only how to say 3 words. I am Groot. And none of those words actually mean I am or Groot. But now all of a sudden, he's able to say we are Groot. And he's talking about we're talking about his family. So where did that come from?
Because
just
to fill you in, this is the emotional core of the movie unfolding right in front of you. This is the moment where they become a family. They finally are together. Groot is making a sacrifice to save his new family, and it kills Rocket, and you see it in his face. And then here comes the branch, basically let him know it's going to be okay. Like, we are a family. You know what my scene doesn't have? Fucking any of that. You talked about how your whole movie, it's like, oh, they're doing this fun stuff. They're running around. They're getting into fights. They're taking down like this huge, fucking, I don't care about the villain from the first one because he's kind of forgettable. Lee Pace is fine, but like not in this because like they outsmarted him with dance, which is great because that's the whole character beat. In my movie, not only are they unfunny, they are unnecessary. They all look like fucking dorks because they're getting their ass kicked. They can't do anything. And Thor comically comes in and does the unfunniest shit I've ever seen. And they all look like they're assholes compared to him. I get it's his movie, but like, why would you do that? We've watched 2 or 3 movies where this is a capable team of good fighters and wonderful characters. And we got nothing from that. Nothing. They do nothing of substance in this scene. They are there as background dressing to be shit on and made to look like goofuses because Thor's got to make a half-assed Van Damme joke.
But we're not talking about usage. We're talking about scene in general. And yours is an opening scene. Yours doesn't need emotion. Yours just needs to be this big set piece full of explosions and rock music to get the movie kicked off on a good note. And that's the only thing it does. It gets the movie kicked off on a good note. My movie, you even said, it goes straight from that into a dance-off to save the universe. It doesn't let my movie, my movie doesn't let my moment doesn't get to breathe at all. You get that moment, it goes, and then it crashes down. 2 seconds later, they're dancing. Then you get Rocket holding it, looking sad, which was good in the moment. On rewatch, it's just like it doesn't hit as much because we know, surprise, 2 seconds later, he's Baby Groot. The moment doesn't get to breathe at all because he's back.
There's actually a wonderful moment in your movie where he is sad, he is sitting there, and then we have Drax, who is the most unemotional person, actually tenderly put his hand on him. And you see him try to resist. That moment does get a chance to breathe. And that is like where we watch these guys become a family. And it's fun. That whole scene, it's ridiculous, but it's fun. But they save the day because that's what good teams do. What they don't do is look like a bunch of fucking jerk-offs to this Swedish idiot or whatever. I don't care what Thor's nationality is, but like he is a fucking goofus. And now these guys look like dorks and they're just doing nothing funny. They are useless. And I'm sorry, like nothing about this scene works. They don't work in this scene. They just feel like added extra nonsense that doesn't need to be there. Also, point of order, best part of the movie is Christian Bale because no one told him he was in a bad movie, just to be clear.
Well, actor-wise, sure.
Yeah,
but we're talking again.
The whole best.
I think we're getting away from it. We're talking about scene. You took the fight scene. The fight scene is the scene with Thor coming in. The fight scene is with the loud music.
Yeah.
And my scene isn't the extra stuff. I was adding the extra stuff in because now that we know Groot comes back, on rewatch, the scene doesn't work as well. In the moment, it works fine. But on rewatch, it doesn't work as well. The We Are Groot gets worse every single time because it's like, where did this come from? He's never said We Are Groot ever again, and he probably never will. He never said any of those words. It just doesn't. On rewatch, mine doesn't stand the test of time. Yours, when people watch that movie, they'll think of that opening scene. They'll think of just that, the Guns N' Roses coming in and Thor kicking ass, and then they'll probably turn the movie off because
they'll think about Christian Bale and they'll think about November Rain, which was the better use of the song and the better scene. Like, they won't think about the Guardians of the Galaxy because they're like, wow, I feel like we got gypped out of a good movie because I thought we were going to get Thor hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Instead, they fuck around for 5 minutes, look like a bunch of assholes, and then fuck off because they don't want to be in this film. Upon watching yours again, I teared up, even though I knew it was coming. We Are Groot is like the perfect core. It is the emotional center of that film. That film doesn't work without it.
All right, Bill, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
We Are Groot is a fantastic scene in that movie of an already fantastic movie. It lands, it sells it, it's great. It is one of the best scenes in that film. And that movie wouldn't hit the same emotional chord if it didn't have it. In my movie, you could remove the Guardians of the Galaxy and you might get a slightly better movie because they're not doing anything of note. They're there to just be a bunch of dorks who look incompetent and have to wait for Thor to come save their ass. And he can't even do that right. Nothing about that scene is funny. Nothing about that scene is necessary. It could have been gone from the film and the film doesn't suffer. Whereas if I took this scene of We Are Groot out of that film, you don't have the same emotion. That's why that one works and this one doesn't. It is just wholly unfunny and just goes to prove nobody else but James Gunn should kind of be handling these characters because they clearly don't know what the hell they're doing because he gets it. Taika Waititi does not. Unfunny. Terrible.
Time. Okay. Let's move over to Brandon for his 1 minute closing when he starts talking.
All right, you take your opening scene, your opening fight scene out of that movie stinks. Even more than it already does. That scene kicks the movie off right. When you get Guns N' Roses kicking in, you're like, yeah. We're not talking about usage of the Guardians. We're watching the scene you picked is Thor kicking ass, and it is effective in that. My scene just doesn't work in various viewings of it because we know what happened. Now that we know what happens, it doesn't work as much. You could take it out. There's still plenty in that movie. It doesn't need that emotional core. We get tons of the emotion later on in the Guardians movies. So this movie, it just draws it to a halt. It's just literally, it's in slow motion. It takes too long. And then it kind of just means nothing. Like, yeah, he made the sacrifice, but for what? He's back. So it just feels like we're being manipulated and being into like, you're going to be sad now because we're telling you we are Groot. It's just grown fest.
Time. Okay. I'll bring in the judges.
Question.
Yes.
When somebody said something is their favorite movie, can I hold it against them?
No.
Because it isn't. Okay.
Just like I can't hold it.
Guardians 2 is my favorite too.
Well, you know what? We're on even slates because that's the worst fucking opinion of all time. Okay.
Straight up, that is both of yours favorite MCU.
That is the worst take ever.
Not my favorite MCU movie, but my favorite of the Guardians.
Okay.
That's
it's my favorite.
That is also
all right. Okay. We're not here to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, I'm going first. Shit. Okay.
Cat Stevens, come on, every time.
Oh, that's
change of characters altogether.
Cody.
They're not the same.
Cody.
Sorry. I already wrote down my answer. We're good.
I think you've had enough screen time yelling about Guardians 2.
I can do it some more.
That's fair. Okay, I'm gonna go first. This was very good. I enjoyed this. And I think the point that brought it home for me was in Brandon's closing. He said it during the main argument as well, where he said the question is not worse use of the Guardians or poor use, or this director didn't know how to handle them. James Gunn should. That whole thing. I thought that worked. That worked for me really well. And I thought that his just saying like Thor kicking ass and starting that movie off right is awesome, and it goes downhill from there. It is the best scene in the movie, versus there are other emotional parts in Guardians of the Galaxy to cling on to. When he talked about just the logic of the We Are Groot scene, I tend to agree with that, and I thought that and Bill's only real argument against it was like, but it's emotional, and Brandon's like, well, it doesn't make any fucking sense. So like I tend to agree. and I voted for Brandon because of that. So, Cody, where are you voting and why?
So I've not seen Love and Thunder, so I went based on what everybody was talking. I went with Bill, and the reason why I went with Bill is because I don't what Brandon sold me as of why it doesn't work for him did not, I don't think, work like selling overall. Like, if it didn't work for him, it could have worked for me. I just don't think there was enough to say that why that scene is terrible besides Groot changing a word. And I don't know if Bill's is actually worse or not. I haven't seen it, but there was really no real takedowns of either one to make it seem like majority of it. So that's what I had to make my decision on.
I believe this is the first split of the whole match so far. So, Brian, are we wrapping up or are we going to the bonus?
Well, I object to this entire debate because I don't care what anyone says. I loved Thor: Love and Thunder. Still one of my favorite movies of the year. I don't care what you say. But that aside,
better than Guardians 2, guarantee.
This is actually, I think, one of the better debates of the entire match. I think Bill made a lot of good points about how how Brandon's was the emotional core of that movie, and how so much rides on that thing hitting, and how you can't really take that out of the movie because it's such an important scene. Brandon was hitting on, like Tim mentioned, about him talking about how it's not about the best usage of the Guardians. However, I think as Bill's pointing out, in an opening scene, yes, this scene is about Thor kicking ass, but it's at the expense of but the Guardians are part of that scene. And these are characters who have been shown as being capable before, but now suddenly they can't do anything, and Thor's just stepping all over them, and they're just completely wasted. I did end up voting for Bill.
All right. Wow. Well, that means your winner, moving on to the title match, is Bill Cariola. So we're going to kick off post-match interviews. We're going to start with Brandon. Brandon, great job tonight. I think it took a while to get you to find your footing in the first couple questions, but I think once you got your mojo, you were running for it, and I thought you played very, very well. How are you feeling about the match?
Yeah, I deserved to lose this one. I wasn't able. I should have watched his. I watched part of it. I should have watched more of his. Like, with his style, I wasn't able to get myself going really until the last Guardian. When you said Guardians was last, I was like, damn it, because I was really kind of banking on that being one of my bread and butters to kind of get going. So I wasn't really able to, I was never really comfortable just the way he was able to work. And then, just preparation, wasn't able to get the preparation in I needed to. I kind of forgot, it was my fault. So just wasn't well prepared. But I'm glad I made it competitive near the end. It felt like it was an ass kicking. And I was able to kind of work my way back. So I feel a little bit better than I did if you asked me for the first two questions. But yeah, I'm usually one pushing the pace, or trying to at least, and pushing people off their game. But he completely fucked me up on the first two questions. Not to be honest, he messed me up bad on those first ones.
It's fair. Brandon, I very much enjoyed having you in these last few matches. We're gonna be doing a tournament at the beginning of the season next year. So is there anybody that you would like to play, or are you just looking to get back in it?
I want Bill again eventually. So hopefully he beats Kirk, and then I'll make my way back to him, because I'm prepped now. I'm ready. We'll do all Guardians questions.
Okay, sounds good. Brandon, great job. We'll see you next season as we bring in Bill. Bill Cariola moving on to the final act, the end year event, to play Kirk in the title match. Bill, how you feeling?
It's for real happening. Jesus Christ.
It is.
I gotta tell you, I was getting actually real nervous in the first two, because I'm like, I'm not going to do this again, right? And I know I was getting in my own head a little bit. And then I was like, oh my God, well, what the hell's going on? And then to get your ass kicked in your own category is a little humbling. So that rightened me up real quick. So Brandon did fantastic. I know it doesn't show, but he definitely put me on the ropes a little bit. I was getting a little nervous there. But end of the day, me and Kirk, rest in peace, the internet. because that's going to be a lot of arguments. So, because good Lord, I cannot. He's going to kill me if I give him teen sex comedies from the 80s. I know it, but
Oh my God.
oh my God. I just want to hear somebody argue the finer points of the fucking Porky's movies. That's all.
Jesus. Holy shit.
Do I do that? Am I that evil? I don't know. We'll find out.
We will find out. Bill, like we've talked about, you're going to play Kirk. You've mentioned it. We've talked about it. You're scaring us with your potential, your category choices.
No, I'm going to come legit. Don't worry. I'm going to
That's
treat
fair.
this like with the gravity that it deserves. So
Fantastic.
Okay.
I'm looking. I'm looking
it's your
forward
nice
to it,
wife,
Bill.
Bill. Let's do it.
It is always fun to see someone new challenge for the belt, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you're able to do in the title match. So we will see you in a few weeks for that. But let's get final thoughts on this match tonight, starting with Cody.
Yeah, you could kind of tell like Brandon went with some strategies that I think if he looks back on it, he probably wish he did make some of those moves. Bill was able to capitalize, and again, some of those tactics and stuff like that. Speaking from somebody that had to play Kirk, those strategies that worked in the first 3 matches don't work very well in the title. So it's got to be a new game plan. I'm interested in whoever wins that. Obviously, I want to go back to the title match, but I think Bill versus Kirk may be like. I don't want to host that match, so I don't want to host that.
So, yeah.
Oh, well, yay! Can't wait to be there. This is going to be fun. You guys are going to do great.
It's probably going to be the 3 of us. Brian, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brandon knew where he messed up in some of those earlier rounds. He couldn't find his footing, and it is a matter of momentum. Luckily, I mean, he came back in the round 3 and put up a fight in round 4. This time he didn't win, but I think next time he'll learn from his mistakes and be able to probably come back with a stronger performance. As far as Bill versus Kirk, that's going to be a fun one to judge. Although I'm on strike, I refuse to judge until Tim has watched True Romance. So he'll have to prove that to me before I will judge.
Okay, can do.
But I mean, I don't know about debate strategy, but as far as entertainment value from a viewer, I think Bill needs to pick the categories that'll piss Kirk off because that'll be fun to watch.
Jeez. All right. Well, we are going to see that in a few weeks here at the final act. So I want to thank Brandon and Bill for being here to play this one for us. Thank you to Cody and Brian for judging this. We'll see you real soon with that next match. Have a great night.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.